everyone, welcome back to another edition of the SBK Betting Podcast, and it's the first of a new month. Yes, we're getting into the autumn now. It is October, and the first weekend of October always means the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, and that's what we'll be keeping our attentions on this podcast. But we also have good action, Group 1 action at Newmarket in amongst just a plethora of racing. Whatever you like, it is on offer this weekend. But before we kick in, Ross Miller, TC, joined me off the back of a successful weekend last weekend. We had a lot to go through, and I'm pleased we threw up winners as we got the 1-2 in the Cheveley Park. Ross landed it with Late Victoria, went off at 6-4, and the manner she did it, you got to think that was a very decent price. She's really climbing the ladder as one of the standout 2-year-olds this year, and she beat into second Daylight for TC, who placed at 13-2. And then just a great race, just a great weekend and all for Ross. My mate Alfie at 7-2 over in Ireland winning, and Dawn Rising each way at 16-1 in the Irish Zarowich. So onwards and upwards. And even though we're getting to the end of the flat season, Ross is really getting into his own. So we'll keep that up. Looking at the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe this weekend. As said, this is the focal point. It's on Sunday, as always, and we have now got the declarations in. We got 16 in. It's 4-1 the field. Luc de Vega is heading it at the moment. Whether that will change, we will see. That horse obviously blotted his copybook last time out. And I think all in all, it's a much more open field. Whether it's a vintage renewal, who knows? But we do have Group 1 horses in the field. We're lacking that Derby winner, of course. We're lacking the sort of the shining light that we've had done going back years and years. But I suppose this is a race which does get taken to one side by some of the bigger players because there's so much good international racing, and the ground is normally very testing. So I suppose, Ross, as you're in great form and you're in France and you probably got the real kick of the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe in mind, is it lacking that certain sort of je ne sais quoi, or do you think it's an all right race this year?
I think there's not a standout, is there? But then do you want the standout, or do you want a competitive race? And in the lack of the standout, which I struggle to think who's missing. Okay, you got City of Troy, but I wouldn't have fancied him in this. I don't think, mile 4 on soft French ground is what he wants. So I don't think he necessarily, his absence takes away from it. I think it's competitive. I think it's difficult to have a really strong, firm opinion. I mean, just at the early prices, I thought Zaracamp was overpriced all week, but he's been given stall 1, and that puts me off because they're going to want to ride him with restraint. And we see time and time again that, yes, it can be difficult to get across from a wide draw, but equally, if you're not going to be positive from what should be a good draw in stall 1, you can get all sorts of traffic problems. So I sort of passed him over. Luc de Vega, you're right, blotted his copybook last time, but I thought he finished very tame. Like, he didn't have an awful lot of fight in him, I didn't think. The family are all 10 furlong horses, very few mile 4 furlong performers in the family. I just wonder whether his stamina is going to last out for this. So I could comfortably overlook him. I like Los Angeles. I think he's been underestimated this year because he's in the same crop as City of Troy. I thought what he did last time in the Irish Champion Stakes was a solid effort. Wasn't absolutely knocked about to finish where he did. Finished very strongly. The drop back to 10 furlongs was always going to disadvantage him. He'd have to be on your radar. But then if you like him, you've got to like Shin Emperor. It's been well spoken that Japan want to win this race. They've tried and they've perhaps had some hard luck stories. They reported that he was only 80% fit for the Irish Champion Stakes. He finished really well. If they've got 20% improvement, and it's very easy to dismiss that and say, oh, but have they? I mean, they said it before he ran. They didn't sort of use it as an excuse afterwards. He's going to step forward for this step up in trip. I think he looks like a classy horse. I think he's been in France. They're clearly tinkering with how they train him. So he's been training on French sort of conditions. You could say the one question mark is testing ground or slower ground, but he's a full brother to Sotsas. He thrived on that sort of ground. His action to me didn't look like an out-and-out good ground horse, so I think there's every reason to go with him and think that he is the sort of classy horse in the field. So he was my sort of main selection, but I wanted to give a mention as well to Al Riffa, who, if you go back a couple of years, I absolutely loved him as a 2-year-old. He won the Vincent O'Brien Stakes. I was really excited by him as a 3-year-old, and he had what looked like a stop-start campaign. He clearly had a few training issues. Came back this year, ran pretty well on his reappearance, then went to Saratoga, and I think the ground was probably too quick from there, and they held him up. I'm not sure that really suited him around Saratoga. Ran really well in the Eclipse behind City of Troy. Now, okay, he was perhaps ridden to get close in that race, and people knocked the form, but I think in the passing of time, it's perhaps not as bad as you think, because Ghostwriter, who was third, has run really well, throughout the season. Then he went to Germany last time, the Prix Von, I can't think what it's called now, but anyway, German race that's previously been won by Toccata Teso and Alpinista in their lead up to their assaults on the Arc. He ran really well, appeared to appreciate the slower ground, 1 mile 4, right-handed, slow ground. I think he's got everything going for him. He's not a classy Group 1 star performer, but he's a very solid horse. And in a year where it perhaps lacks a star, I think he shouldn't be overestimated. And I think he's certainly one I want to keep on side as well.
Yeah, the Prix von Berlin, to give it its full title.
That's the one.
It's crazy to think, he's a Group 1 winner at 2, obviously 2 years ago, and it's taken him all that time to get another win to his name with, as you say, a truncated career. They've tried to be creative. They've sent him abroad. He's not ran in his home country since the back end of his 3-year-old career. So yeah, it's an interesting campaign by Al Riffa, and obviously he's Japanese owned, but Irish trained by Joseph O'Brien, and Yutakitaki is on board to sort of right do the wrongs of every opportunity he's had in the past. And yeah, we'll see how Al Riffa gets on. He is going to be 10-1 at present. Will he be that price? Will he drift? I think this market could shake up a little bit, but it's going to have this sort of open field. Los Angeles is 5-1. I personally wouldn't want him to get any shorter. He's obviously got that 3-year-old aspect to him, and I completely agree with you. He is unfortunate to be in the year of City of Troy. He is one of the most exceptional looking horses I've seen. He's just a real standout, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on. But yeah, he's probably just been unlucky to have been in the same year group as a horse that seemingly is the best that Aidan O'Brien's ever trained. Don't forget, we have a 25% winnings boost in this race. So I think this is the type of race where you want to avail of that opportunity because of the odds being so good and so open. And Tom, we are so well used to this race now, years and years gone by. It's been a long while since we've had a sort of a Golden Horn, a See the Stars, a Derby type that sort of can hold its own regardless of trips, regardless of ground qualities. How do you assess it now when you're sort of trying to find your angle in it? What kind of horse are you looking for in the sort of modern form of the Arc?
To be fair, I just want a horse that handles soft ground, a horse that I know will definitely stay, and a horse that should go into the race with the class box ticked. And I think you can say that about 5 or 6 of these. Obviously, then you have to look at draw. And you don't want to be situated in the car park right out wide. And also, like Ross said, you probably don't want 1, maybe even stall 2 either, just in case you miss it and you get just pushed back through the field and left in a horrible spot. So they're like the main angles I like in the race. I have no issue with the market right now, to be honest with you. I think it's probably about right. Maybe I would have Sosi joint favourite, or maybe just even slightly favourite over Look de Vega, just on the basis of that run last time and the fact that Sosi had already beaten Illinois, which is, obviously being franked in the St. Ledger, with Illinois running out a very game second. So I think Sosi is probably the horse to beat, but I have no qualms about the current price of that horse or Look de Vega. Again, Los Angeles, another very good horse, stays well, physically imposing, as you say, represents Aidan O'Brien. There's a lot to like about him. The only thing I don't love about Los Angeles for a race like this is that he doesn't do much when he's in front. And I always feel like in an Arc, you can just get chinned by a horse who's ridden maybe slightly more efficiently, depending on what happens in the race, how quick they go. And that would be a slight question for me. I wouldn't want to take a short price about him. I know he's won plenty of races so far, and you can't really say he's done anything wrong. It's just that he doesn't really go ahead and win his races. He kind of loiters when he's in the front and waits for another horse to come. So that's my one slight concern with Los Angeles. But he's got a great chance from a class perspective. But I'm going to be with Ross with my pick. It's going to be Shin Emperor. And to be honest, I don't have much more to add other than Japan deserved to win one after targeting this race for so long. I loved his run over in Ireland. I thought he did well after his rider extricated him from a bit of trouble towards the inside. He stayed on powerfully in the latter part of the race. He's going to love the track, probably. He's going to love the ground, definitely. He's going to love the trip, definitely. And he's also run in big fields before. He ran in the Japanese Guineas and the Japanese Derby. Both races had double-figure fields. I think one had 17 runners. I can't remember the field of the other. But he ran well in both of those. So I don't think the field size will be an issue for him. There's just a lot to like about Shin Emperor. Hopefully he wins because it'd be a good story as well.
Yeah, it certainly will be. As Ross touched on, his full brother Sotsas won the Arc on very testing ground. You know, we'll see what's going to materialize, but it looks like it's definitely going to be soft. Whether it's going to get much worse than that. So Shin Emperor, there's plenty of support with him. Before we move on, I feel like this is the kind of race, and we've seen it before, and I would hate to overlook anything because, you know, it wasn't that long ago when Torquato Tasso won this at 66 to 1 or 80 to 1 or something huge. Even Sotsas himself was a really big price, and I know we've had two last winning favourites of this, but it's unlikely we're going to get anything short in here. I just wanted to ask views on a couple of them. So maybe Ross, Blue Stocking, she's been supplemented. She got given a very good ride by Ross Orion. Whether he can control a race in open company like this again, but you know that you've got a battle-hardened quality filly on your hand that seems to be fairly versatile.
Yeah, she's a strange one for me because generally I'm pretty emotional about these horses, and a good filly doesn't half pull on your heartstrings. And she, for whatever reason, she just slightly passes me by. I mean, she's a really gutsy filly. I mean, they've stumped up the money, so good on them. But I just am not convinced that this big field tactical race, I think she can just take a bit of winding up sometimes. Now, okay, she's going to have a long home straight to run into, but tactical speed is about being able to get yourself in position early. And we see year upon year that horses finish fast. She could well be a really gutsy, brilliant, fast finishing fifth, sixth, something like that. I could just see her lacking a bit of. She doesn't lack speed. She won over 10 furlongs, but the desire to give Rosser that speed when he really needs it to just hold his position. I think sometimes she can be a little bit slack with that, and for that reason, I'm against her. And I'd love to see her run well because good on them for supplementing it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You might say I don't think she has that tactical speed early on, which you do need, and a lot of horses need to have the speed and in the class to close it down. Which TC touched on. Los Angeles just idles a little bit or doesn't need something to bring him into the race, and then Ross Ryan needs to just have him just at the right moment to finish it out. Just quickly then, couple of others for you, TC. David Menuisier, who's put up a strong game, and he does a lot with his horses, I find, and I have so much respect for the man, but he thinks Sunway is completely overpriced. He's a horse that's been a little bit of a nearly horse this year, but he's got close to Los Angeles, who is a quarter of the price to him, and he ran a good race in the St. Ledger. Him and another mare, Marx de Sevigny, thoughts on them? Do they have each way chances?
Some ways an interesting horse, 3-year-old going into the race, run plenty of times this year. It's been quite a long campaign, but as you say, it's gone close to a couple of other horses who are much higher up the market. My issue is, one, David's a great trainer, but he is forever an optimist. And I think the price is probably accurate given what he has achieved so far in terms of victories, and also what he's going to get in this race. It's going to be a lot of hustle and bustle. He's probably going to be quite far back, and he's also drawn stall 15, I think, which is far from ideal. And the same can be said about Andre Farb's mare that you touched on there. She's been fantastic this year, but she's drawn 16. So the draw is quite a bit of a negative for both of those horses. You cannot never write off a horse in the Arc. They're all top quality animals, aside maybe one or two right at the bottom of the market, and they all have Group 1 potential or proven quality, but I think they have their work cut out, both of those two.
Okay, right. Well, just wanted to keep in check with some of the horses that potentially could just cause a bit of surprise, because we've seen it before, and this might feel like the type of year that will happen. But a reminder of the ARC selections for TC and Ross. They're both going with Shin Emperor. Is this the year for the Japanese? Ross also likes Alrifa, and I think we've all got the same sort of feeling with Los Angeles, and we know that he's a good horse, probably the best of the 3-year-olds. But is he able just to sustain the whole pressure of a Prix Triomphe? We shall see. 25% winnings boost from SBK on that race, so get involved. That's Sunday. Before Sunday, we have a Group 1 race on Saturday at Newmarket. That's the Sun Chariot Stakes. Just the 6 runners, these fillies and mares. headlined in some respects by it being Inspiral's swan song. And she's got, yet again, a different jockey. Rab Havlin's been booked. And Nashwa is in here after a good bit of time off for Holly Doyle, Darnation, Amalka, See the Fire, and Davin Manuse will hope that Tamfana will give him something to shout about ahead of the big race on Sunday. Trappy old little affair. It can cut up a little bit. I suppose you're kind of either with her or you're against her with Inspiral. She won this race last year, but she's just been a little bit just lackluster, hasn't she, Ross, this year for whatever reason. You know, throwing Brian Moore on her last time didn't necessarily help, but I still think she ran probably the best race this year, coming third to Charon. Is this setting her sights a little bit lower than what she's been competing in?
It definitely is, and it was better last time, but it was still some way. I mean, Spiral of 2023, I think she'd have won that last time out. She's not what she is, and that's not said in any way to be disparaging. That's why horses mares retire to stud. You know, they do their running and they've done their fill, and they go off and enjoy a second life and produce the next generation. I'm surprised to see she's favourite here because I don't see her having a favourite's chance. The ground is currently soft. It's probably going to dry out. I hope it's going to dry out because I'm coming to the UK coaching this weekend, so I'd like it to be dry, please. And that would give her a chance. But even then, her very best form is on quick summer ground. And she's not going to get that. Change of jockey. I mean, I don't think Kieran Schumacher did an awful lot wrong on her this year. I've got to be honest. I think you can only go through the gaps if you've got the horse to take you. And I don't think she's been at it this year particularly. So I could oppose her fairly readily. Nash were the same. She's been off since March. She ran pretty disappointingly with Maiden, I think it was, wasn't it, where she was quite well beaten. This is a tough enough return after all that time off, and maybe they'll be building her into a winter campaign abroad again. I don't know. See the Fire, I think, was really interesting. She was on my sort of final couple, but I just am not convinced that she's as good on slightly slower ground, and I'm working on the base that it's not going to dry out to the extent that she might want it. So I can overlook her. The one that was really interesting through the early part of the week when I was working in the pouring rain here in France, and you kind of forget that weather is, you know, localized. I thought Darnation might be a bet if it came up soft, because I think she's a really talented filly when the ground gets desperate, but it's not going to be that. And she's got an entry as well in the Prix de l'Opera on Sunday. So I wouldn't be surprised if she comes out, which takes this field down even further. So it left me with Tamfana, who I don't love, but I think she's had a pretty... I like TC, I like David Manizzi, I like people that aren't afraid to offer a solid opinion one way or the other. She's had a bit of a messy season, really. They haven't quite known what they want to do with her. She started off over a mile, they went to a mile 2, they went to a mile 4. And I think she's had excuses each time. She came from a long way back in the Guineas with Jamie Spencer. Then she went to the Prix Diane and probably lacked a bit of luck in running. And then she went to the Grand Prix Paris, and I think she got a poor ride on that occasion. Oisin Murphy had a long way back. Was really good last time at Sandown. TC tipped her up, and credit to him, because I think you were in agreement, didn't fancy her over a mile on that ground. It was good ground. She's by Soldier Hollow out of a Zoffany mare, bound to appreciate slower ground. She's clearly got the speed for a mile because she showed it last time, and she showed it in the Guineas, for all that form looks a little bit shaky. I think if the ground's on the easy side of good, which it will be, I think she should be the standout favourite. She's not. She's 11-4 with SBK, and I thought that was a decent bet in a race that I'm not mad about. Okay,
Colin Keane's booked to ride, which I thought was interesting. He was racing at the Curragh. I couldn't find whether he's over for anything else as well, but quite an interesting booking that. I actually don't know his stats at Newmarket. I know that the Babouche didn't work out last week, but you know, Joe Lyons doesn't send over a lot of horses to the UK, but you know, he's a great jockey. But you know, I'm looking at now 1 from 26 years at Newmarket. This could be a bit tactical, could it?
Yeah, absolutely. 6 runners in here. Most of them don't want to go forward. The Colin Keane aspect is an interesting one because it has been well publicised, his lack of success over here, considering he was so prolific in Ireland for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years over a period of time. Not right now, but a couple of years ago. his success over here has been pretty bleak. So I like the jockey booking because obviously Colin Keane's one of the best riders, but yeah, Tamfana's an interesting horse. She wants a little bit of cover. Nashwa wants a little bit of cover. Inspiral definitely wants cover. It's interesting to see who will go on. See the Fire. Andrew Balding has said in quotes that she tends to run her best races when she gets into trouble. So there's no way she'll be leading in here. Amelka came from slightly behind in the Guineas and ran behind last time in the Nassau, I think it was. So Darnation may be the leader, but it could be tactical. It's an interesting race, Jess. I very much share the same opinion as Ross insofar as Inspiral and Nashua are hard to bet. It feels like they are both on a downward trajectory. And if you look at official ratings and take them as literal, how can you really bet them in here? Because they don't have much in hand anyway of the other horses that they're giving weight to. You know, I think Nashua's 120, Inspiral 117 or something like that. And they're giving £3 to horses who are within £3 of them. Nashua maybe not, but she's definitely not at her best. She hasn't won for 15 months now. I think you've got to side with one of the up-and-comers. Tamfana is the horse to beat, in my opinion. I agree with Ross there. Surely she should be favourite in this race based on that effort last time where she took that big step forward. But I just like See the Fire. I think her upward trajectory may be a little bit more steep than Tamfana, who's kind of plied her trade at the same level for a period of time now. See the Fire last time at York was very, very impressive. I love how she powered through the pack and got the job done. It was hard to come from behind that day as well. It was a big benefit to be up on the pace. So to come from way back and still win was a big tick in the box for her. Prior to that, at Glorious Goodwood, she just lost to Opera Singer. That horse is very good for Aidan O'Brien. And again, See the Fire came from way back. Opera Singer made the running. And prior to that, on the soft ground, she was beaten in the Eclipse by City of Troy. Now, City of Troy in this race, I mean, obviously can't run in it, but would be well odds on. And it was a pretty hot race as well. Like, she was never going to get closer than fourth, I don't think. So I like See the Fire. It wouldn't be a race that I'd be having a max bet in by any means, but I think she's a decent price for what she is against horses that are maybe regressing right now.
Yeah, and I think you could say that with Inspiral, Nashwa. We don't really know where we are with her. Tamfana, she's making a really big step up again. Obviously, she's held her own in Group 1 company with her own age group. See the Fire has done that, plus gone against elders and against the opposite sex. So yeah, I can see the case for See the Fire at 92. Yeah, a trappy little event, and very interested to see how that goes. So Ross with Tamfana and TC is with See the Fire. So that's the Sun Chariot. We've had a very good look at the ARC. And I've got to remind you again, the ARC, 25% winnings boost. And SBK are so generous this weekend. They're giving you a 25% winnings boost on the Sun Chariot as well. So whatever you're thinking, whatever opinion you side with, or maybe you're against all of it, get involved with SBK with that 25% winnings boost. Right, let's head on to Naps and Next Best. We could have gone anywhere, I suppose, with this. There's so much good racing. Ascot's got a good fixture. Newmarket, of course, there's a lot of all-weather action. TC, I'm sure you're going to be focused on what's going on in America as well. But Ross, you're the one that's loving the flat at the moment. And TC, you've had a very solid season in general. But Ross, you know, I'm not going to be able to take you away from it in a couple of weeks' time. So you may as well make the most of it while you have it.
You will get me away from the flat very easily, Jess, I have to say. And TC just talking about the sort of pace makeup of the Sun Chariot sort of gave me images of those sort of Newbury maiden hurdles where no one wants to make the running and they trot down to the first hurdle and take 40 seconds to get there. Be good to see them all come trotting out the stalls on Saturday in the Sun Chariot. There is no jumps racing on Saturday, so I've stuck with the flat. And of course, Sunday is the big day with the return of Utoxeter and a pretty decent novice chase. But my nap is in the 320 at Redcar, which is the 2-year-old trophy listed contest. And I like Richard Fahey's Uncle Don. He was off 76 days before returning at Ayr last time over 5 furlongs. Was really eye-catching. He was given far too much to do. It was a poor ride, but he flashed home. He's previously finished second over 6 furlongs. He's got the stamina for it. And on his second run at Beverley, he actually beat Big Mojo fairly convincingly over 5 furlongs. Now, that was his second start. It was Big Mojo's debut, so I'm not saying you should take the form literally, but he beat him very, very comfortably. Big Mojo's now 108 rated. He's won a Group 3, the Molecombe. I think that's a decent piece of form. And the way Uncle Don finished last time at Ayr over 5 furlongs, I think the 6 furlong trip's going to really suit him down to the ground. He's got a decent rating against some of these. Richard Fahey's form has just dropped off a bit, but Uncle Don had a nice break through the mid part of the season, so he's my nap in the 320. And then the next best comes at Ascot, and I had a couple at Newmarket I really liked, but they're in big field handicaps, and I just, after the Cambridge last week, I just can't trust where the draw's going to be. I mean, that was a bit nonsensical, I thought, last week, and if that holds up, then you know what you're doing, but there's every chance that they'll have changed the ground and the drawbars gets flipped on its head. So gone to Ascot for my next best, which is Golden Mind, also for Richard Fahey's yard. He was one that I wrote as a don't forget him for Juvenile Watch last year. So that's gone really well because he's only run twice. He didn't reappear till August, and he was far too keen over a mile at York and looked a really aggressive, far too keen, like an awkward horse. He was then gelded, ran last time over 7 furnish at Doncaster and ran much better. It was his first time on soft ground. He was given a fair bit to do, but it looked deliberate. It looked like their priority was to get him to settle and to find him a rhythm, because a couple of times he had run his races back to front. Finished a really good effect. It's gone up £4 in the handicap. That was off 99. He's now off 103. So he's got a decent enough rating, but I like Ascot for him. I think the stiff track will suit him. He ran really well in the Cheshire when he was actually pretty unlucky in the Cheshire. He found traffic. Never really replicated that form last year, but I thought Doncaster last time was a big step in the right direction. 7 furlongs, slow enough ground, stiff track. I still haven't quite given up on Golden Mind just yet, so he's the next best.
Okay, right. Uncle Don, 320 red car, Golden Mind, 335 at Ascot. That's for Ross. As we move over to TC, what have you got for us on a very busy weekend and good all-weather action as well?
Yeah, I wish I could chuck US horses here in the Napa Next Best. It is a very, very good weekend across the board. UK, Ireland, France, US. There's lots of great action. Obviously, sticking to the UK for the Napa Next Best. I'm going to go to a minor meeting actually for the Napa, and that's going to be Southall's evening meeting. It's going to be a horse called Marion Glass who runs in the 5:15. Now, much like Ross, I didn't know about the draw really at Newmarket. I have a Newmarket selection as the next best. And Ascot, I didn't like anything on that card. I know it's a good card, but it's just trappy and very difficult. So I thought I'd go to the evening meeting. And yeah, Marion Glass 5:15. This horse took a lot of money on her first 5 runs for Ed Bethel. She barely ran a yard on any of them. She didn't look like she was going to really develop into a nice horse. It didn't look like there was anything really going wrong with her either during the race. There wasn't obvious excuses like ground, track, trip, none of that. So she was a bit of a letdown in the first 5 starts of her career. There's no doubt about it. Punters, connections obviously expected better. Then Ed Bethel fitted blinkers. She ran with great promise when she was 6th at Wolverhampton. She was too far back in the race. She was wide throughout, which is just a big no-no at Wolverhampton. You can't do that around that track. Yet she still ran through horses, once angled towards the inside, under just minimal hands and heels riding to stay on for 6th. That was the first sign that Marion Glass has plenty of potential. Last time up at Newcastle, straight track, therefore not taking the risk of being situated wide. She was much better. She raced against the near side rail, which is favoured, and therefore she could have been slightly flattened by the margin of victory. But the way she did it was very impressive, and she beat a Newcastle specialist who could win on Saturday as well, actually, or Friday, actually, in the process. So she was very good then. She's gone up £5, which I think is very fair considering the state of improvement we've seen over the last 3 runs. She's still definitely well handicapped. She's drawn okay. She's going to be my nap at Southall. I think this track is definitely going to suit her as well. The slightly longer home straight at Southall than the likes of Wolverhampton or Lingfield is going to play into her strengths. So Marion Glass 5:15 is the nap. The next best is at Newmarket. It comes in the opener at 1:30, I believe, and it's a horse called Mina Huna. 3 odds of 1/6 the last 8 editions of this race. Again, I want to side with the horse. It's up and coming. Maybe not had too many starts. Plenty of improvement. Going to the autumn months with that big state of progression, I much prefer that to a 4-year-old in a race like this. And Mina Huna kind of fits the bill. She's a daughter of Dubarwi. She represents William Haggis, who's having a good end to his season. She's been a bit of a slow burner as well. Her first 2 runs, she didn't really know what she was doing. And then she was ridden aggressively at Windsor, off the front. And I love how she continued to roll all the way to the line, probably at her most powerful in the final 100 yards that day over the mile. They stepped her up to mile 2 last time at Sandown. And again, she was very impressive, holding off Cheshire Dancer, who's a solid stalwart, nothing special in terms of ability, but a good stable horse for Hugo Palmer. And Mina Huna kind of just pushed her away in the latter stages, hitting the line powerfully. She's gone up £8 for that. Whether she's improving that quickly, I'm not too sure, but I'm going to take a chance that she is. I think she's got a good chance in the 130 at Newmarket.
Okay, so a couple of fillies that Tom is following. Marion Glass in the 5:15 at Southwell, 1:30 at Newmarket, Minhuna. Let's just quickly get some of the standouts over on the other side of the world. We've got, as you've touched on, excellent racing, turf, dirt, whatever you like, in a plethora of racetracks from Belmont the Big A, Keeneland, Santa Anita. So what is it that you could highlight out of all of those that we should follow, especially with Breeders' Cup less than a month away?
I mean, how long have we got, Jess? There are 8 Breeders' Cup winning your in races at Keeneland, just from Friday to Sunday this week, the first week of their full meet. There are a litany of fantastic races, huge clues for the Breeders' Cup. So if you will be playing or even watching the Breeders' Cup in a month's time, you have to watch Keeneland this week. You're going to be able to find out pecking orders of the 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds and older horses across all divisions. There are great races up at Belmont the Big A, where Irid Ortiz is staying. He could have gone to Keeneland to ride a few for Chad Brown. That's not the case. He's staying in New York. And I think a major part of that is the fact he's riding 2-year-old filly Senza Parole, who's going to be a very warm favourite, in my opinion, for the Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies, providing she wins her trial on Saturday. Santa Anita, we've got a couple of really good stakes races as well on Saturday. So it's just great across the board. I will say for a European, maybe the most interesting runner comes at Keeneland on Saturday in the featured race, the $1 million Coolmore Turf Mile. And it's not Mountain Bear for Aidan O'Brien, who is in the race, finished second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf last year, but it's Kukuli for Harry Charlton. I wasn't really thinking he was going to be over there. Harry's done this one move before with Greek Order, who's now based in the US for Jubmont, but Kukuli's an interesting runner. I don't think he'll necessarily win the race. There are 2 very good US turf horses in Carl Spackler and More Than Looks. But Frankie Dettori takes the ride, and maybe people will want to watch how Kukuli gets on.
So I hope that we found you some winners, as there's so much going on this weekend, some excellent racing. All the way back to the beginning of this podcast, we highlighted the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. That's the big one. And SBK are offering a 25% winnings boost. Also 25% winnings boost on offer for the Sun Chariot Stakes. Max Stakes and T's and C's do apply. It's 18 plus and over, and please gamble responsibly. And if you are a new SBK user, where have you been? But we will be giving you £40 in free bets when you sign up and bet £10 for the first time. And also head to SBK for lots of other offers, promotions. There's plenty going on throughout the weekend at SBK. Again, max stakes and T's and C's do apply. You have to be 18 or over, and please gamble responsibly. So hope, again, we found you some winners, and we'll see you next week.